You're listening to Power Talk, Berkeley Electric Cooperative's official broadcast about the cooperative, our communities, and ways to use energy wisely. And now, let's join our hosts for today's episode. Good morning and welcome to Power Talk. I am Mike Aponte, the Communications and Media Specialist here at Berkeley Electric Cooperative, joined as always by my stalwart co-host, Miss Libby Roig, the Director of Marketing and Communications. Good morning, Libby.
Good morning, Micah. You know, Power Talk is my favorite part of every week.
We've been doing it for a solid year plus now.
Yep.
It is ingrained to our very souls.
Yeah, and it's a longer running program than you and I mean, moving
True.
in on a decade.
It's been going on for a little while.
Yeah.
So, but the only reason we have Power Talk is because we have special guests that come in and talk to us, because nobody wants to just listen to us ramble on all day. So our special guests today are the man, the myth, the legend, the energy guru himself, Mr. Eddie Ploweden, Director of Energy Services here at Berkeley Electric Cooperative.
Thank you for having me again.
Again and again. Yes. We go to the well, you know. We know who we can count on. And we're going to bring somebody else. We're going to drag somebody else down to the well with us today. It's Mr. Tim Swicord, the Manager of Energy Services. Welcome to the show, sir.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me.
One of our few remaining coworkers that we haven't managed to drag onto the show yet. So, yeah.
We got a whole nother box of Power Talk mugs. We could
You saved the best for last.
That's right.
Save the best for last.
You know, there's certain people we just got to, use them sparingly.
Yeah. Well, and Tim and Eddie are going to share some really important information today. If anybody's ever considered solar panels or, wanted to know more about it, we've got everything you want to know about solar panels.
There you go. And as is tradition, Tim, we've already presented you with your official Power Talk mug, one of the, rare, tchotchkes that you will just cherish forever. As Eddie shows it off to the camera.
Eddie loves his Power Talk mug.
And the other part of our tradition is we're going to ask you to share a little bit about your life. Folks who haven't met you before, give us a little bit about you, your background, how you ended up here at the co-op and sitting across from us. What poor life decisions led to today?
Culminated.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't make poor life decisions. But seriously, I graduated from Clemson University back in
poor life decision.
Yeah.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Anyway, in mechanical engineering, went to work for Santee Cooper right out of college. Worked there in a variety of roles in the environmental field, working in the generation field at the power plant, that kind of thing. And 28 years later, I decided I wanted to change, so I retired. And about a week later, I came to work here at Berkeley Electric, and it has been...
Decided you want to go back to work.
It didn't stick.
Fabulous.
Short retirement.
Well, I did not retire with the intent of being retired.
Yeah.
I just took advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, today, both of you work in our energy services team, which offers a multitude of services to help our members manage their energy usage, from our smart thermostat program to energy audits, on-bill financing for energy efficiency upgrades. And the team has a tremendous amount of knowledge to assist our members. That's why y'all are the energy experts. But this level of expertise definitely comes in handy when a member is considering installing solar photovoltaic system. That's easy to say.
Photovoltaic, yes.
Yeah,
System.
10 times fast.
Kind of want to add on to Tim's intro and being I call it energy engineering, and then that's something that I've been doing for many years. And then, when Tim came up to interview and then to start on the team, we were looking for somebody that could really be an expert in the math behind advising our members on solar PV. Because our members will be taken advantage of by, sales folks that are not telling the whole truth. And we wanted to make sure that we advise our members on what's really going to happen when you would make this huge investment at your house, and then what is the results. So Tim was the one that helped us get more ability to help our members.
Yeah, and we're excited to talk more about that today because you hear a lot about it, and like you said, there's a lot of misinformation out there, but Berkeley Electric's definitely here to advocate for our members. And in fact, the co-op has the most rooftop solar in its service territory than any co-op in the state. And these hundreds of BEC members who have solar at their homes outproduce the entire Colleton solar farm near Walterboro, which has 10,000 panels. So it's a big deal.
Absolutely.
So, Eddie, what does Berkeley Electric support solar as a generation source?
We do want a diverse mix of capacity for our members, but also want the members to have opportunity to do something. A lot of folks like to, and a lot of members invest in energy efficiency, but also what can I do to try to produce my own power. You can get a tax write-off on it as a non-renewable or non-environmentally. It's a good sound way to generate power, not have emissions, at your house. So but what about an investment? That's what we want to talk about today, about us advising on the investment. We want members to make a wise investment.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, Tim, we're talking solar, and we talk rooftop solar, of course, because that's what most people are familiar with. What is the first step when it comes to installing a solar PV system? Photovoltaic system, as we say.
That's why he's the communications guy. He can say it.
So we always say that before you spend money on an investment like solar, you should evaluate your home for energy efficiency first. Typically, some of the energy efficiency things you can do have a much quicker payback than investing in solar. So do that evaluation first. Some of the things that you should think about and look at are smart thermostats that you can program to help you with your heating and cooling loads. Installing LED lights, most people have done that, but there are still folks who have fluorescent, and there may be some legacy incandescent bulbs out there. Make sure you have proper insulation in your home. You want to be sure that your home is encapsulated properly. If you have a crawl space, you want to make sure your crawl space is good and dry, because if it's not, you're going to bring moisture into the home that's got to be removed by the HVAC. And then speaking of HVAC, service that equipment regularly. You want to do it at least once a year. We recommend twice a year, but at a minimum, cleaning the coils at least once a year to ensure that it is, operating as efficiently as possible. And consider upgrading it. Over time, if you have like an air conditioner with an electric furnace, that's a lot less efficient than installing a heat pump. And so from that perspective, that's what we recommend first. Once you're getting into the point where you're actually considering solar, we have a checklist. And so the first thing you do is you want to engage multiple solar providers, get the best pricing that you possibly can. And let us help you with that. Not so much in getting the pricing, but evaluating the proposals so that you have a reasonable expectation of what to expect from your solar system. And what I mean by that is the solar companies will tell you things, and not the company, but the salesperson will tell you things that simply won't be true. In fact, most of the time, those promises are not in the contract. So this is one of those times where you definitely want to read the contract from front to back and understand what it says before you sign it, because it's a legal document once you sign it. Many times we have folks come in here, they were promised they wouldn't have a power bill anymore, but they still have a $100 power bill, and they have this contract. And you read the contract, and the contract says, well, we promise to provide this specific equipment, and we don't guarantee output beyond a certain time. And so, basically you're buying equipment, but you're paying a premium for that equipment. So just understand that. So again, 3 prices. Consider using local contractors. There are a lot of vendors that come in to our territory selling solar, but they aren't based here. They're based sometimes out west. Utah is one of the more popular states. And once they sell the system, they're gone. They may have a local presence from a sales force perspective, but they don't support the system locally. You will call a 1-800 number, and you'll talk to somebody somewhere else. So be sure, just at least consider using, the more local companies. make sure you qualify for the tax credits. There's a big deal. Federal government is providing a 31% tax credit. The state is providing federal government's 26%, state is 25%. There are some caveats to that. You have to have a taxable income of enough to cover the tax credit, or you won't qualify for it. So if you're retired and on Social Security and not paying state or federal taxes, you won't likely qualify for the tax credit. So just understand that. We have a lady right now who's going through that. She was misled, and there are some documents that are available for folks to look at to make sure that. But we always ask that you talk to an accountant and be sure that you qualify for the tax credit. So once you get your proposal, before you sign it, read it. Send me a copy of it. I don't need the financial part of it. What I need is, what does it actually say, so that I can evaluate that and give you a realistic number on how it's going to benefit you from a financial perspective. In other words, the contract says we're going to put these panels on. I can take a look at your hourly energy consumption, kind of match that up. This is historical hourly energy consumption for the last year. Match that up with theoretical production numbers on an hourly basis using the tool PV Watts, and give you a very realistic evaluation from month to month on how that solar system will impact your power bill. And typically it's not as much as you think. The payback is typically 12 to 14 years. And that's another thing is consider the payback time and your age, and not being an ageist here. It's just realistic. If you're in your mid 70s, ask yourself, what does your health look like? Do you anticipate living long enough to benefit from this system? It may be that you don't care about that, and that's fine too. This may be an investment that you're going to leave to your kids. So it just depends on what your personal motivations are there. But if you're just looking at it from an economy perspective, just make sure you cross all your T's and dot all your I's.
So, Tim, if we're looking at 12 to 14 years on payback for a solar system, what's the life expectancy of a solar system?
So typically, the contracts that I've seen, some of them will guarantee the panels for 20 years, but the inverter for 15.
Okay.
Some of the panels will be guaranteed for 25 years. You can pay a premium to extend the warranty on the inverter, but that just increases your cost, and it extends
your payback,
and your break even, so to speak. So just do the math.
So for other energy upgrades for your home, what is the recommended payback time?
2 to 5 years.
Yeah,
and
2 to
sometimes
5.
quicker than that.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're doing and whether you do the work yourself.
Yeah. So just throwing out some perspective for folks who are listening.
And I mean, there seems to be a lot of, hesitation or a lot of things that you have to take into account. But at the end of the day, you need to take those things into account, because what we're trying to do and what you would like to do most of the time is you're trying to lower your power bill. I mean, there's two main reasons. You can either be doing it to lower your power bill, or like Eddie said, you can be doing it to invest in renewable resources. So there's two different drivers. But for most folks, they're trying to lower their power bill, and you don't want to just supplant your power bill with a loan payment for equipment.
And that was where I was going next.
Right.
Is typically a member that may see an $80 savings average per month on their power bill are paying $130 to $150 a month for 20 years. For this loan. If you sell your home, that loan's going to have to be cleared up. We have a member right now who is the third person to live in this house since solar was put on, and it just got turned off by the loan company because of lack of payment. And he's trying to figure out how did that happen, because he's got assurances that it was cleared up before he purchased the home. So there's some stuff going on there that when we just try to provide documentation. We have folks that have solar and they're being audited by the IRS or by the state, and they need a signed copy of their interconnect. Well, we have all that information in the vault on each account. So I'm able to print that out, PDF it over to them or whatever. and help them satisfy the requirements of the audit.
Yeah.
Well, for you folks who are just now tuning in, we're talking solar PV with Eddie Ploweden and Mr. Tim Swicord, and we're going through all the different things you need to keep in account when you're considering buying a solar or installing a solar system on your house. And we're talking energy efficiency upgrades. It's probably one of your first steps. And when you really come down to it, Eddie, solar is just generation. I mean, it's just another way to create power. And if you don't keep that power in your house, or the air that is created by the power, say if you're talking about HVAC, because that's your primary driver for your electric bill, you might be producing the power, but if it's all leaking out through leaky windows or leaky ductwork, that type of stuff, you're not really gaining any sort of benefit from it.
No, you're just trying to, plug a hole, and of course, Tim has already mentioned that our automobile financing with our Home Advantage loan program. We'll go out and do a detailed energy audit for the home, diagnose, the holes in the home. Of course, Micah had, in the past had the holiest
this old home,
holiest house, old home that
Swiss
needed
cheese.
to be filled up and that's energy efficiency. You want to try to, Tim mentioned it, like seal up the shell of the house, make sure it's insulated properly. Your duct work needs to be tight. The air needs to go from the return grill all the way through the unit and back into your home and not leak out in the process. Mm-hmm. And we see that a lot. Filters need to be changed and units serviced at least annually, as Tim mentioned. Of course, we have the smart thermostat program where you can actually install a great Ecobee or Honeywell, Emerson smart thermostat and lower your energy use just from the thermostat itself. So that's the first investment, the quickest investment, the good comfort, improve your comfort right away, if you have problems in your home with these energy efficiency investments.
Yeah, and if you're considering rooftop solar, and like we said, there's a lot of information to digest and think about. You can go to our website. We have a ton of information at berkeleyelectric.coop under renewable energy on our website, and there's even a step-by-step guide and even like a rooftop assessment tool. And speaking of rooftops, that's actually one of your first steps before you start anything is how old's your roof? Because if you're talking about putting a solar system up there that's going to be bolted down to your roof, you got to make sure that your roof is going to last at least as long as the system, because otherwise you're going to have to take it off to put new shingles on or along those lines. So step one, make sure your roof's good.
Yeah.
And we have folks that take them off to change the roof and decide not to put them back.
Oh.
Yep.
So it is a good idea to make sure you have a new roof or a roof that will last the life of the panels.
And then one of the other considerations when we're talking about roof is roof orientation, correct? And that's part of like the rooftop assessment tool. So what's the best orientation when we're talking about solar panels if you want to get the most production out of them?
So the most production,
and that brings up, like what hemisphere are we in, Micah? Are we in the southern hemisphere, or are we in South America, or are we in North America?
Last time I checked, we're in South Carolina.
It's North America.
Yes.
So in the northern hemisphere,
Northwest.
Typically the ideal way to orient your panels would be due south. If your roof is situated where it's like some east to west orientation, you would benefit from having half of your panels on the east side and half on the west side, simply because the east side will wake up earlier than the west. But the west will go to sleep later, so you get a longer duration of solar radiance.
Mm-hmm.
Due south, you're going to get it all day long,
right.
Pretty much. Anything on the northern half, the payback is just really bad because they never see direct sunlight.
Well, and direct sunlight is very important when it comes to solar panels because, I mean, one of the things that you also have to take into account, if I'm not mistaken, is trees.
Trees.
If you have any kind of shading from trees that occlude your panel, that go over your panel at any part of the day, that's going to impact production. Is that correct?
It will impact production, and it will depend also on the type of system you have. So if you have a single inverter, that inverter will not wake up until a certain percentage of your panels are awake, which means that as the sun comes up, if half of your panels are shaded, the sun will have to come up a little further before your system will wake up. with the single microinverters on each panel wakes up on its own. And so if you have some shading, it's more advantageous from a generation standpoint to have microinverters than it is a single inverter.
Wow.
And just like, Tim had mentioned, you're adding another item in your home that you're going to have to maintain. You're already trying to maintain your cars, make sure your roof's not leaking, your HVAC system is working properly. But now you've added a solar PV system. You need to make sure that inverter is working and, the system is producing, and watch that, over time. And then be able to who you're going to contact to try to get that repaired in case it does go down.
Yeah. I just scheduled preventative maintenance for my garage door. So
well,
there's lots to keep going at a house.
Well, and Eddie, you mentioned too, where do we live? Where do we live? And we live in the low country of South Carolina. And what did we just go through in season-wise?
Do we have pollen here?
Pollen, the yellow snow. And, I mean, that can crust up on things in a heartbeat. So, I mean, if you've got...
Get up there with your glass cleaner, Micah.
I was about to say, you're going to have to be up there hosing your roof off, to try to clean the panels, I'm sure.
I want to see paper towels and Windex.
I mean, just things to keep in mind. Like I said, where you live, trees, pollen, orientation of the roof. There's all kinds of stuff that you got to think about.
Yeah. Eddie, we've talked about how the process works and how we're here to advocate for the member. We're solar neutral as far as if somebody wants to install it at their home, and what some members can expect. But what should members not do when getting a solar PV system or considering getting one?
Well, we mentioned the energy efficiency, but certainly renters, folks that are old, as Tim was talking about, and then also lower income members should not go with the solar systems.
Yeah.
And then also from a system standpoint, from Central, from our cooperatives of South Carolina, we're trying to install the large scale solar systems to benefit our members. From that standpoint. So we're adding that in with the request to try to add more generation in our state. As we grow, we need to grow our generation in our state.
Yeah, definitely. But, like Tim mentioned earlier, not all solar salespeople are created equal, and some aren't 100% transparent or honest about what the process or the system, how it'll operate, and that they'll say electricity rates are going up and you're not going to have a power bill with this new system and you got to buy right now. And
you don't have to buy right now.
Yeah.
You need to consult with Berkeley Electric Cooperative. As Tim mentioned, contact us before you sign on the bottom line. We'll do an evaluation for your system and see how it's going to affect your power bill, first.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think it's important to mention too that Berkeley Electric, we do support our members going out and getting solar. If you want to go put rooftop solar generation, we're here to help you evaluate that and walk you through the process. But I also think it's important to note that speaking to these salespeople, Berkeley Electric does not actually partner with any solar salespeople currently. So we get a lot of reports from members where they drop off all these solar salespeople in a neighborhood. They go door to door. They're knocking on everybody's door, and they claim that they're working with the co-op and they're representing us, and that they're partnering with us on those solar sales, which unfortunately is just not true in this case.
Yeah.
And when we have someone knocking on a door and giving false information representing Berkeley Electric Cooperative, we do want members to contact us to let us know, because we would like to inform the neighbors in that neighborhood with a message, that hey, contact us before you get solar PV. And we talk about this a good bit, but really it's not a lot of our members have solar. We put in our first system in 2011, so 13 years ago, and now we still only have 1.5 members per 100 have solar PV on the home. So it's something that's small, but something we want our members to contact us first before they make that decision.
Yeah, and to your point about letting us know if you do have someone who is selling something that doesn't sound accurate, to give us a call, because we in the past have been able to, if you live on 123 Main Street, we can look at kind of that area and message the folks who live in that greater neighborhood that, hey, there's we're hearing reports of blah, blah, blah. Be aware, or we can put it on our social media channels. We want to help our members know when there's scams out there.
Right, and I mean, a lot of times it's not. I mean, not necessarily a scam. I mean, like you said, there are honest ones out there, but then, like you said, Tim, you got to look what you're signing on the dotted line, because some of those times they come out there and say that the system's going to be free, but that's only if you sign over all of the rebates and credits back to the company. So, I mean, there's ways for them to sort of like make their money back for the quote unquote free systems.
It's never free.
Right.
They do require, every contract I've ever seen requires you to forfeit your federal tax credit within 18 months. If you don't, then the loan payment will go up. They will give you this introductory loan payment that will be, lower, and you can maintain that lower payment if you surrender your tax credits. Mm-hmm. So, that's part of their business model. A lot of folks will get that big check and they'll go buy something, and then they're stuck with that really high panel payment. So, one other thing that I didn't mention earlier that it bears mentioning is that, check with your insurance company. We've seen a lot of folks call us and say that their insurance company is dropping their coverage because they're, quote, selling energy back to Berkeley Electric. And we don't consider it selling energy back, but the definition the insurance company is using does consider that. So just be sure that, number one, you check with your insurance company to be sure they'll continue to insure your home. And two, ask them what the rate increase is going to be, because that really needs to be factored into your decision.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, how do we actually compensate members for the surplus power that their system might generate?
So the solar system itself is interconnected behind our meter. So it generally will come into either a breaker within the home, or it will be spliced into a line somewhere in the home. And so the home will preferentially use the energy that the solar system is producing. It normally does not use all of it, because in the daytime when the sun is really high in the sky, if you don't have any appliances running, you're going to have what we call the excess. And so for the energy that you produce, that you use directly when it's produced, you gain the regular retail rate, which is roughly 12 cents per kilowatt hour. It's a little less in the summer, a little more in the winter. A little less in the winter, a little more in the summer. But for the excess, we have this renewable generation surplus rider rate, and that rate is currently at 5.52 cents per kilowatt hour, and that's going to be effective May 1st. Mm-hmm. It's based on actual system costs, and it's on a 3-year average, so it's a pretty stable value, but it is about 50% of the retail. So just be sure that when you're looking at a system size, you not only size it for your needs, but don't oversize it, because the oversized portion of your system is going to have a 50% return. Okay. And so, it's less value.
Right.
And that's, I think that's an important point about, the value we give out to members as far as the excess. You want to, you heard exactly what Tim said. If you're offsetting, power, you get the full 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. But the reward for excess is only like 5.2 cents, and that is truly the value that we get from that energy. We're giving those members the full value wholesale savings that we get, to them, and that's all the savings we get. So we give that completely back to the members. So.
Well, I mean, and at the end of the day, one of the new things that things are always changing. The solar technology is getting better. They're starting to work on battery storage systems that will help with storing the electricity that you're not using during the day, because like you said, during the days when the sun's out, that's when it's shining. You'll lose some of that energy that you may not be using that's getting produced because you're not there to use it. So with the home battery systems, you can store it up and just charge it at night to help further lower your bill. But I mean, that's new technology that's coming down the road. They're working on it. I think we've partnered with Tesla to test something at our community solar facility that we have on our system. So all that's new. It's coming down the pipe. So folks, don't get discouraged. There's a lot of good stuff coming for solar. Berkeley Electric, like we said, we're here. We've got our energy experts, Eddie and Tim, to be willing to walk you through all the process and help you navigate the shoals of the very confusing and sometimes shady industry. So we're out there looking out for you. But folks, that's going to do it for another edition of Power Talk. So thank you for tuning in. And this is the official broadcast of your electric cooperative. And you can catch up on past episodes on streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. And until next time, this is Power Talk signing off.